Hello, everybody. It's February the 20th, 2026, coming to you live from the big metropolis of Tulsa, Oklahoma. Welcome. It's going to be a fun episode tonight. We've got a forensic archaeologist, and it's going to be fun. Dr. Sam White, no relation to me, but we had his wife on here, Teresa White, and now we've got her counterpart, Sam White, and he's going to talk a little bit about archaeology, etc. And we're going to talk about a lot of cool stuff. I signed in on under the wrong thing, so I may not be able to message you as far as when we're going on here and going through this tonight. But I do see that Kathleen's in the house. Tyler Burns, thanks for the nice comment on your podcast about me the other day. Thank you for that. Phyllis, Karen, and Travis from Muskogee, welcome. I love it. Expert at nothing. Jill, I think I saw Teresa's in here too, actually checking us out. And Chris, and there's many others. So I appreciate it very, very much. And episode number 86, who would have thought? This is great. I don't know that we're going to have an episode next week. I'm going to have my computer with me. We may have one. I just don't know if I'm going to do it next week or not. I just haven't decided. So if I do, it's not going to have my cool mic and I don't know. We'll see what happens. I might just get an itch and I'll just have to do it. So, and if we do, we do. I don't know. That case in Tucson's just driving me crazy. There's a lot of stuff going on there, and I really have high hopes that they're gonna solve it in time. That forensic genealogy takes a lot of time to do it. That's not something easy that they can just do in 5 minutes. That takes a lot of work. And so hopefully they're going to be able to learn something. And to tell you the truth, I mean, there's a possibility that that glove that they found along the road, it could end up being a crime scene person's, and that didn't speak up and say, oh yeah, I threw my gloves out the window kind of deal. So I don't know. And as far as DNA in the house, you don't know that either. That could have been just some random worker that was there 6 months before. So hopefully they're going to find something that's going to lead to something. And but you know, my major criticism of that, actually, just because I can't keep my mouth shut and I really want to say something, is that my major criticism to this whole thing is that I just think that there's too much stuff being talked about. And I think that I think they need to keep some more stuff close to the vest. And that's just me. I'm not a big person when it comes to sharing a lot of details, etc. But nevertheless, nobody asked me, and I don't know that they ever will, but that's just my opinion. So hopefully everybody's doing good. I'm about ready to head off to Montana. I love it. I just learned the other day I'm going to be going to the great state of Washington. I'll be in the middle of the Cascade Mountains speaking, which is going to be, it's going to be, well, somebody was asking, it was Chelsea. Chelsea was asking what my opinion of it was. And yeah, I've got a lot of opinions on it. I don't know really all the answers of it, to tell you the truth. I'm kind of sitting there wondering, I don't really know. And I think that's probably a good answer, because none of those experts that are on there really know either. There's a few of them that are really, really sharp, but they don't really know. Come on. And so I have to be careful, because it's a political world, and I don't want to sabotage myself for later by calling anybody out. I don't want to do that. But let's see. Give me a quick second here. I'm going to pull up this bio, and then we will get rolling. Hopefully everybody's had a great week. I'll tell you what, the last, if I know that last week we had a troll in the house, and you know, if there's a troll sitting back waiting to pounce, to this week, Amanda is going to have cat-like reflexes, and she's going to boot you out of here so quick. But she also told me, Amanda says, hey, it's not all a bad thing. It means that people actually, you're getting enough viewers to where they think that people are going to see them. It's going to cause a stir. So that's good. So she says that she thought it was kind of a good thing too, even though I wasn't really digging it. But anyway, this is Dr. Sam White. Dr. White is an archaeologist working for Vantage Point Solutions as an assistant manager for their environmental services department. He recently retired from FEMA, where he reviewed projects in the process of disaster recovery to facilitate consistent compliance with local, state, federal, and tribal laws as they pertained to environmental and historic preservation. He received his Master in Arts degree in cultural anthropology in 2015 and his PhD in applied anthropology. Mrs. White, in applied anthropology in 2019 from the University of Montana. He is a co-owner, instructor, and consultant at Bone and Stone Anthrosciences with his wife, Teresa. And Teresa was on here a few weeks ago, and I thought she was awesome. She did a great job. Samuel has participated in numerous archaeological projects, surveys, and excavations in Yellowstone National Park at various United States Air Force bases across the continental United States, on the island of Saipan, in the CNMI, and in the, I'm going to probably say this wrong, but Asen region of Chilean Patagonia. Additionally, Dr. White is the co-author, and this is really a cool book, the co-author of a recently published book, Human Skeletal Remains, a field guide to identification, recovery, and preservation. And let's bring him on. Welcome, Dr. White. I like the sound of that. That's cool.
How are you, Jason? Thank you for having me.
Such an honor to have somebody of your stature between both you and your wife. And I thought, what a perfect guest to bring on, since I'm going to be visiting your great state for the very first time. And I'll be trying to set foot in Yellowstone if I can actually drive in there. And so my hope is that the weather's going to cooperate a little bit to where I could go there. But listen, I was thrilled that you were willing to come on tonight. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And, I'm honored as well. Thank you.
Good. Hey, listen, tell us how you ended up getting interested in this field to begin with. I'm interested.
Well, as a child, I was always in, I guess you could call it an arrowhead hunter. And I was brought up for a certain amount of time on the Chesapeake Bay on the eastern shore of Maryland. And as a kid, I always had spare time. It was all I did pretty much. But when I felt like it, I'd be on the beach, beachcombing. And I came up with a lot of artifacts from, gosh, I don't know, the oldest, probably 9,000 years old. A lot of very old habitation areas on the Chesapeake and around the Chesapeake. So it was if I wasn't catching fish or crabbing, I was arrowhead hunting. So that really got me into it. And then that continued on through just about to high school. And then I was a ranch kid, so work took more precedent and priority than arrowhead hunting. And so I didn't do much until getting back into the idea of school. And then I pursued it because I love cultural facts and history and all of that. So we can tell a lot about the past by the archaeological record.
Was there anything that, you kind of saw on TV as a kid, or, you were exposed to specifically that you're like, okay, this is what I need to do. I need to get into this.
Gosh, probably, well, of course, Raiders of the Lost Ark, of course.
Oh yeah.
And before that, there were a number of, like caveman, although I hate that term, movies and stuff on, and that kind of made it even more cool. So it kind of tied some things together. But I from a young age, I was really excited about how cultures changed and what it was like to live at whatever period of time, and what it was like to use basically stone, bone, and wood for your tools to live. So it all kind of came together as something that I really loved.
Yeah. So how does somebody how does somebody end up getting into this? And we talked off air, and you had said something about, you had actually mentioned something along the lines of that you are, not only are you a anthropologist, but you're an archaeologist as well. and I did
Yes.
not know that.
Yep. For instance, my wife is a forensic anthropologist, and I am an archaeologist. So those are two of the subdisciplines of anthropology. So, are you still there, Jason?
Hi, sorry.
Hey,
Jason
man.
seems to have some difficulty. I saw him open another screen and then he dropped off. Hopefully, he'll be back with us shortly. Please continue what you were
Okay.
saying.
Hi, everybody out there. Basically, the kind of the the way I got into anthropology and the train of um, academia would be to anthropology being the overarching discipline of archaeology and forensic anthropology. I started by going to classes that were specific to anthropology, such as boy, basic historic classes to osteology classes to kind of the whole gamut of what anthropology is composed of. And from there, I focused after getting different credits. There's a certain number of credits with each part of each discipline, so it's kind of a drawn out process. And I had an idea of me wanting to go and be an archaeologist. So my direction, and I often use, I mean, using your advisor in the academic realm is important to save time, so your credits aren't getting off track. And you're because at the time, I mean, it's a 10-year adventure from uh, from your bachelor's through to the end of a PhD, 10 at least.
Mhm.
And so you want to be pretty efficient at all that. And also along the route, uh, I had a really great advisor and chair, Doug McDonald, throughout the process. And he's got a lot of background. Our main person in for and for Yellowstone Park. He did awful lot of things in Yellowstone Park. Great archaeologist, and actually he's got a few books out there. If you look up Doug McDonald, archaeologist, you'll see 3 books and lots of literature. But having a good person in your corner who will direct you and also someone who will employ you. I worked, gosh, 5 summers with Doug in Yellowstone, and he did things like we'd go by boat across Yellowstone Lake and then canoe back another 3 to 5 miles and stay there for 7 to 10 days. And
Mhm.
in that area, it's the most remote area in the lower 48, and you're literally 40 miles from the nearest road. There's grizzlies and wolves and all kinds of amazing stuff, and an incredible amount of evidence of the occupation and habitation all the way around the lake, dating back to, we found Clovis artifacts that date back to 12,000 years ago. So it's been inhabited for thousands and thousands of years. So, and it's also, I think, as we were talking, Jason, it's also a super volcano. So,
Yeah.
we were thinking, well, if that's going to happen, I guess we're at ground zero. Isn't a bad place to be, but it's some of the most incredible country that I've ever seen, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, is there several other super volcanoes that exist across the world, if you know?
There are, I'm not, this is one of the big ones. I mean, this is the biggest one here for sure. And I don't know, that would be a quick one to look up, however. There's all the tectonic plate shifting and everything
Mhm.
creating friction in different areas of the world. That's what makes these hotspots happen. So basically, the Yellowstone caldera is a hotspot over the North American plate, and it moves. It doesn't actually move; the plate moves. So you'll see if you look at an aerial view of Yellowstone Park, and then kind of envision the valleys that are formed by mountains. You'll see it. I wouldn't call it a trench, but a depression all the way out to the coast from there. So it's
to the Pacific,
you'll understand
Pacific coast.
Yes,
To the Pacific,
like Idaho, the Idaho lava fields and places like that are the previous locations of that hotspot. So,
wow, I did not know that.
It's really interesting, and yeah, I don't know that there's a safe place to be if that thing goes off, but we were constantly being, apprised of any expansion in the crust or anything. If it really was looking like something was going to go on, they would have told us with any luck at all, I guess. So,
yeah. Well,
but I would still visit Yellowstone in a heartbeat.
I mean, I remember as a kid when, and you're from Montana your whole life. I remember as a kid in 1980 when Mount St. Helens went off, and that was as a kid at 10 years old, I was like, oh my gosh. So I'm sure you probably even got a bunch of ash in Montana, a lot more than what we did. We didn't get much. I lived in Northern California when that went off, and just really something.
It really is. And I mean, one cool thing with archaeology, I won't go too far into it, but that is a way that we can date sites, because for instance, a Mount Mazuma in Washington, that is the location now of Crater Lake, that had gone off, I forget how many thousand years ago now, I'd have to look that up. But that date is a known date. And when we have that layer of ash above what we're looking for, that dates what's below it because of the laws of superposition. Basically, if you imagine a layer cake, the stuff that's on the bottom is older, and the stuff that's on the top is younger. With the exception, you've got all of the geological actions that happen. So that, in a perfect world, that is how things are settled. But you have uplifts and erosion and all kinds of things that change that. However, what we do know is when that volcano went off, and we can identify the ash from that, and that has worked many, many times as a verification of date for lots of sites.
Hey, you'd mentioned the Clovis site real quick, and those are remains that date back 12,000 years of people, right?
Yes.
And so what was it that even got you guys to that site to begin with? Was there a discovery of some sort?
Yes, the discovery happened in 1968. I was allowed to participate by the PI for that site, Larry Laren, and also the Anzac family. The site's name is the Anzac site, and it was discovered in 1968 by two construction workers who were removing rock for a local school's septic system. And as they were removing it, they noticed basically red dust coming out of the hillside. And in that dust were about 115 lithic artifacts. And I actually, to give you an idea, Clovis is an end of the Ice Age culture. They were hunter-gatherers going after megafauna, which means large animals that existed during the end of the Ice Age, or during the Ice Age. Giant bison, Bison antiquus, were huge animals, and mammoths and mastodons, and cave bears, ancient camels, and ancient horses. Not to be mistaken with the horses that existed during post-contact Native American days, because those were the ancient horses were there. They died out at the end of the Ice Age, and then there were none until reintroduced by European people in the 1400s, we'll say. So these horses were part of the megafaunal extinction that happened at the end of the Ice Age. But these animals were cave bears and giant sloths and dire wolves, and so these were the prey of these this particular culture for the most part. And Clovis is a name that is derived from the first place this diagnostic form of artifact was found, being Clovis, New Mexico, basically. And a diagnostic feature of Clovis points is what's called a flute, and it's basically a channel that's been chipped up the body of the artifact to allow for hafting to a stick or bone, and that's diagnostic of that culture. And it's so the people who found the site found saw the red ochre is what it was. It's a powdered form of hematite that you'll probably, I'm betting you've seen in as you've driven down the highway, big layers of red in some of the layers of earth or along the roadsides, red colored. What they are is iron-rich soils or rock. So if you haven't seen them, you'll see some in Montana for sure.
Well, I'll be looking for them for sure, because that's interesting. And actually, nice find, Amanda. She found out that there's basically like 20 super volcanoes throughout the world.
There you go.
Think that there's 20. That's interesting. And
yeah, thank you.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I'll tell you what, I've been on a volcano that's smoking, and that's the Popocatépetl in Puebla, Mexico. And I've been up on the really close to the cone. But it looks close, but it's really not that close, because you're walking through like a beach of ash. And it's and I've actually felt that thing erupt when I was in Mexico a second time, where I felt an earthquake from it, and it actually was an eruption. And then when that thing goes off, and it's quite possible, that thing's going to be catastrophic, I think, because it's right between Mexico City and Puebla.
Yeah,
that's what I think.
Kind of the same. Sounds like a similar situation as the Yellowstone.
Yeah,
but yeah, so these folks way back when were the hunters and the hunter gatherers of the Montana and the Northwest, and also all the way over to actually North and South America. So, and I'll get to that. I'll try to be less long-winded here, because there's quite a bit to cover. But the discovery at the Anzac site was by these two guys in 1968. And here's a cast of like one of the stone artifacts. There are 115 stone artifacts and bone tools that came out of that. These are all casts, of course, are not the originals. I've had all the originals and used them to measure them all, and as well as the human remains. And so these are casts given to me by the family and the museum of in Helena. And this is one of the artifacts cast that this was a fluted point. I wish I had one that I didn't have to a bone, but this was part of my dissertation. So that's just basically a demonstration of a hafting technique that they likely used.
Yeah.
Um, and then these just huge artifacts. So, and there were 115 of those, all made of this amazingly high level chert and agate, and they were from all up to 300 miles away, we think, and which is extraordinary because keep in mind there were no horses. So this was all on foot, and it would suggest that these people knew the area very well for hundreds of years
Hmm.
because they knew where these locations, these quarries were to get this incredible stone. Um, so that discovery, the artifacts were all covered with a red ochre, red paint, essentially, and underneath this stack of 115 stone tools were the remains of this boy from 12,000, essentially 12,000 years ago. Mainly cranial remain, basically the top of the skull, and a clavicle, but he was about a 2-year-old boy. And that infers that he was a very important person because this toolkit that was left with him it showed everything from start to finish, how to Clovis technological assemblage, how to create all these, and it can be speculated that possibly it was for him to survive in the afterlife. Is kind of a nice thought that many people have, and I would agree with that. And it's also a thought that good Native American friends of mine and people, researchers, agree with as well. So the find was it's the only known Clovis burial in the world. And in 2014, it went through a series through the years of basically looking at the artifacts, looking at the remains, trying to decipher what it all meant. And archaeologists are, like I was saying earlier, the archaeology is about establishing the past through the archaeological record. And some ways we do that might be one of the theories called middle range theory, which takes current maybe tribal groups that are hunter gatherers, and of course they're getting few and far between now these days. But we do have some research from people who've done ethnographic studies, and it's called middle range theory because it takes the observed habits and practices of people now, we'll say, and applies that and tries to infer what the past has by what the archaeological record shows. So that way, it's just it's guesswork. It's storytelling, but
Yeah.
archaeologists are wonderful storytellers. So most
Yeah.
of it,
And
a lot of it does make very good sense, and it's a way to decipher what went on in the past.
yeah,
Um,
and what I think about, I think, you said Raiders of the Lost Ark, and you're right. But so I think of like going into the tombs in a pyramid, and
yep,
I've been in some pyramids in Mexico and in places that probably I shouldn't have been, along with people that were my guides. But that's what I think about. I think about that, and that's what you guys are pulling out, like pots. But there's probably multiple disciplines with archaeology specifically, right? You know?
absolutely, yep. Especially when it comes to the dating process, you'll that's why the excavation of a test unit, for instance, is so time consuming. You want to get, it's a destructive process. Archaeology is a destructive process. If you're doing it, you're slowly going down through and you're trying to get as much of the data recorded as you can, because these data, they'll, if you don't do it right, they're gone. Very much like getting bones from a crime scene. if you put them in a plastic bag and you put that in an evidence room, you're going to lose the DNA most likely for them. So it's very similar to that, and that's where also regular archaeology and forensic archaeology kind of mesh, is because the data collection and the specifics of that data collection are very rigid, and to do it right, you only get one shot.
Yeah.
So the excavation, the other disciplines would be for the DNA. We know and can tell a lot about environment by the pollen, and that pollen is existing in thousands and thousands of years ago in the layers of the soil. So if it is the stratigraphy has not been destroyed, we know that from a certain level associated with a certain object we might have found, if we take a dirt collection and send that off or do it at the location, we can what we call float that pollen, and then compare that pollen with current pollen, and we can tell what was going on at that time as far as the vegetation, what was growing, and that would also allow us to know what animals are feeding on that, which would allow us to know what the target subsistence animals were, that sort of thing. So it's all progressive and intertwined as far as the disciplines are concerned.
Now, there's a couple of places that you'd mentioned that you actually did some work, one of which you were very proud of, and that's Saipan.
Yes.
So let's talk about that.
Okay. Saipan is, here's a picture of the Northern Marianas Islands. And Saipan is, you'll see the Philippine Sea. If you went to the, actually the small map there in the lower left corner, you'll see the Philippines, and you'll see the several Japan. And so and the red line there is the chain of the Northern Marianas, and that is approximately 1,500 miles from Japan and the Philippines, and let me see, several thousand miles from the mainland of the U.S. So it's well into that's the Philippine Sea right there, and then the Marianas Trench would be on the Pacific side of that. And what this is showing is Saipan. If you look at those, the arrows and the squares with an X across them, and then it says red 1, red 2, green 1, green 2. My hotel that I stayed in for 11 months was right where that green 2 hits the beach. What those are is the landing locations of groups of Marines in 1944 in June. The Pacific D-Day is what it's known as, and we were the Marines were there to basically take over the Japanese occupation there. This was in 1944 during World War II, and so what that left, that couple of months, I believe it was total, within let me back up here a second. I was there for FEMA, for rebuilding and helping people with their homes after a couple of typhoons. So what that required was coming in and trenching areas for sewer lines, electric lines, things like that. What that would do is just dig down into the soils. So these soils have been inhabited by indigenous people for 2,000 to 3,000 years. That would be the Chamorro and Carolinian people, who are, we believe, descendant from the Philippine cultures that long ago. And so we'd have those, again, if we picture the stratigraphy, if it were nothing was damaged, the Carolinian, the old populations, 3,000-year-old would be first. The 2,000-year-old, those would be Carolinian and Chamorro. And so those are indigenous, and they still live there. But what I'm getting at is different occupations from Europe. There was German and Spanish occupations, and then there was a Japanese occupation, and then there was the World War II mix of Marine and Japanese soldiers. So when these trenches are being dug, we're digging through. And one more thing, we have to remember that those beaches were hellish battlefields. And we had, as those trenches were being made, we had unexploded ordnance all the time that from cannon, ship cannon shells, down to we found hand grenades that were still alive on the surface. And
Wow.
so when the big shells hit, all of that context, all of the stratigraphy that were superposition naturally through time, were all blown up together. So we would have 3,000-year-old Chamorro bones, for instance, mixed with Japanese head in a helmet, or the lower torso of a Marine in a poncho. And
Wow.
we'd come across all of these bizarre things. And those things had to be handled, of course, properly and with respect. And the Japanese people, the government would be contacted for what we knew was Japanese. And of course, the United States would be contacted for our troops. And then the local indigenous people would be contacted regarding what we knew to be ancient people. And really, the ancient people were easier because through time, the bones would have calcification. So that would often be, and there'd often be different burial techniques and different rocks and artifacts that were left if the burial was pristine. So we could tell to a certain degree that those were ancient. Now up through the different Spanish and German occupations, pretty difficult to differentiate those, and then very difficult, with the exception of course, dog tags or helmet that we could tie to, or the poncho that we could tie to our forces or Japanese forces. It has made for some very difficult times, and we'd have to spread all these remains out and try to decipher the best we could. And when we would finish, everything would be boxed up and labeled, and there are hundreds of boxes still there. I'm guessing that this has been, what, 4 years ago now, but I'm betting they're still there that need to be gone over and gone through, so people can be contacted. It's a
How about weapons and stuff like that? Did you guys find guns? And
well,
you said helmets, helmets, so
yes, we found pieces of guns usually, because the weapons that were used were ours were accounted for unless they were blown to bits, and lots of expended cartridges, lots of things like that. And then in caves, there's a lot of caves there that are still being found that are full of anything from arms to, not human arms, but weapons, to grenades, to swords, all kinds of different stuff. But most of them have been found, but there are still, because the U.S. troops the Marines would come in and blow them up. They would make it so they didn't want to deal with the Japanese soldiers in the caves. So, and then there's all kinds of different places, but that was probably one of the most bizarre and interesting places I've worked, and one of the most satisfying and emotional times that I experienced was being part of the reburial of the Chamorro remains, Chamorro and Carolinian. I cannot say enough about the cultures. The Chamorro, Philippine, and Carolinian people of Saipan are some of the nicest people I've ever met, and
Yeah.
we helped them. Actually, they allowed us to take part in reinterring these remains. It was a big ceremony at several places on the island. That I was in charge of digging several of those burial vaults, and also I put some of the remains down into them. But some of the most dramatic things were it was very quiet, with the exception of 50 or so conch shell horns that were blowing.
Wow.
And
I got to say this. I have a really interesting. Well, I think it's a good question, but Germany. We got somebody from Germany that's in here checking this out. That's pretty epic right there. Jürgen from
wow,
Germany.
excellent. Thank you.
That is, yeah, that is excellent. And people from Florida, Ohio, Tennessee, North Lake, Texas. Hey, when you were doing this dig, I'm just interested. Was it all just skeletal, or was there any tissue to any of these? Like, I'm sure that were you seeing like some adipocere even, which explain.
I didn't see any adipose here. Nope,
Okay.
I didn't see
Or any
any
kind of
in
odors?
Saipan.
Was there any odors or any none of
Nope,
that? Okay.
there wasn't that I experienced. Now, that's of course site specific. Not like, I mean, that was 1940, 1944. So, and then it's in pretty porous sandy soil, and some of it's very acidic as well. So,
Mhm.
mostly bones. I don't recall any scent, to be honest.
Interesting. So from there, that's fascinating. I had no idea. That's pretty crazy. I didn't know that any of that. And then so from there, you also mentioned that Patagonia. Show those pictures. That picture from Patagonia, Amanda, with the handprints.
Yes, that is a cliffside above our sites that we were digging, and this location is in the Aysén region, about, gosh, I don't know how many 100 miles north of Tierra del Fuego in Chilean Patagonia. Um, and it's we stayed at the base of a uh, mountain called Sierra, Cerro Castillo, one of the most beautiful mountains I've ever seen. And the the area there is, I liken it to Montana when I first got here approximately 50 years ago. It's relatively vacant of people, and these were indigenous people from a couple of thousand years ago anyway. We didn't really get it's hard to date handprints because it's a deposit that's datable that wasn't existing on most of these cliff sides. But yeah, that was amazing and beautiful. I mean,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
Chilean
I've heard great.
Patagonia is incredible.
I've heard great things about that. And the other thing that I think would be it's fascinating to me anyway. It's Mount Everest. I mean, Mount Everest. There's hikers. There's people that have died on that mountain that they
They're
can't
still
get them
there.
off of there. And so
Yep.
other people, when they're going to the summit, they're passing by bodies that could have died in the 50s or the
Yep,
60s,
exactly.
and they're still clothed and they still have tissue. And I think that would be just really nightmare
It's
material, really.
it
But it's
it
just
is. I actually watched a show on that the other day, and it's really unbelievable. But they're hiking or walking above what's called the death zone, where oxygen, your body is literally dying. So they can't waste time. Well, I can't really call it wasting time, but they have to think of themselves before spending time bringing these bodies down because they're liable to be the next ones. So
Yeah.
it's
So that
boy,
so like in
horrible.
Montana and places in Canada, there's glaciers. And
Yep,
so I mean you have Glacier National Park. I guess there's a potential that you could theoretically find a body that is pretty well preserved. I mean, it could have been
absolutely.
dated back way back, you know?
Yep, and that has been done in Wyoming, just outside of Yellowstone Park. Um, it's been that's a glacial archaeology is a specialty for several archaeologists, and there were a lot of animals like sheep, mountain sheep, for instance, that were hunted, and at different times there was a period called the altithermal, and it was hot in the lowlands and cooler in the higher areas, so that pushed people and animals to those areas. Um, and that's a temporal difference that was specific to those the temperature, temporal meaning time zone, time periods. So at those times, yes, and you're absolutely right. We've found uh, old like thousands of years old atlatl darts, which is um, a a dart with the chucka ball throwers for dogs that
Yeah, I
throws a
do.
tennis ball a long way. It's a handle.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
essentially this. It's the same thing, but it's from thousands of years ago, well before bow and arrow. It was a way to send a projectile down range to animals, and very effective. But those darts have been found, and it's a big deal. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And just like
Well,
Otzi in the Alps.
yeah, so
Go ahead.
let's talk about this book that you came up with, that you're one of three authors to this book. And Human Skeletal
Yes.
Remains, a field guide to identification, recovery, and preservation. What was it that I think this is fantastic, by the way. What was it that
Thank you.
that made you sit back and come up with this idea that this book is needed?
Well, I have to be honest. I as an archaeologist, my wife is the forensic anthropologist, and I'm involved to the point of I wrote the one of the chapters in there regarding some of the legal aspects of the human remains, and I also where I could contribute. Um, we all realized Hillary Parsons and Lily and I realized that there was a basically a niche that wasn't covered, that needed to be covered, so we could teach people, mostly law enforcement and people operating in government services, how to recover these remains accurately and not with high tech. This is a compass like a a lensatic compass like this to get your data, and locations, your datum, and without having your. I mean, I love Trimble. I love all of those things. The different types. I mean, they're great, but uh,
Well, wait,
for
what's Trimble?
Trimble would be electronic devices that come in. Trimble's a company, but the different types of electronic machines, basically, that come in and electronically take down data of a site. So it would be it would give you proximity of a casing, we'll say, to a body. It would give you things like bullet hole in a wall, and I know that the using the sticks and all is still that's a major way to figure trajectory of a bullet. What this does is rapidly enables a department to take down 90% of the data from a location, location of body. So that is a really fast, but it's high tech and very expensive. We wrote this book to provide a way for people to understand the basics, first off, what you need to recover and how to recover it without having to use these this high tech equipment. So it shows you step by step how to excavate a burial site, how to record locations, how to establish datums and secondary datums, and how to use your compass when you're doing it. All of those things that are important to forensic anthropologists as well as archaeologists. So again, doing the in-depth recording and taking down these data that need to be preserved. Because as you know, once you take out the tents that you have laid out on a crime scene that are covering a bullet, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, if they're covering casings, it's important to have that all down, take lots of pictures, have that all down, and understand by way of measurement where all these things are. And so it's a longhand log of what you need to do that has been quickened by the technology without the you don't, that machine, if everyone had a machine like that, it'd be wonderful. However, another aspect of these machines is they have to have people that understand calibration, have to have people that understand that, and calibration means that you take it from one location to another and it's set up properly in order to be able to record what the site is about. And all of these things are about replication, replicating your crime scene or your site for court.
With like Faro scanners and
exactly. Faro scanners are, yes. Yep.
Yeah. So ladies and gentlemen, don't, here's the deal. This book is not, it doesn't just give you the license to just go ahead and, I mean, it's good. You should know this information. If you have a forensic anthropologist or archaeologist in your region, give them a ring. Okay. And I've seen this, I've heard this from them for years. They're like, you wouldn't believe how many people will find a bone out in the middle of somewhere, and then they will throw it in the trunk of their car. They will drive it to the ME's office and say, hey, I found this out here. And they're like, what?
Yeah.
You need to take a photograph. Yeah. You need to take a photograph of it and you need to send it to somebody. This is like,
and leave it where it is. Yeah.
Yeah, this is one of those situations that's if absolutely you cannot possibly find the people that are the experts in your region, which is possible, that this tells you how to do it, and you really should educate this is great to have on your shelf and to educate yourself to be a better investigator, crime scene person, etc. And they're great, honestly. Sam, I know from my experience, they're always awesome about letting you throw some gloves on and help. They want you right in there with them, and they love that. And I love it too, which is always pretty cool.
And as long as, I think that's a great point, as long as you have the first thing that you need to do if you find human remains is contact law enforcement. Absolutely. Don't touch it. Don't just back away and contact law enforcement immediately. And I should have said that way before about the book. This is not a how-to to allow you to be the one that excavates. It's all law enforcement is the group, but this will allow you to understand what law enforcement's doing. And as Jason said, maybe they'll allow you to be part of it too.
Well, the law enforcement guys are some of the biggest culprits. They're the ones that need to really, they're the ones that need to but in reality, no, I think that's great. And I think this is a fantastic book that is needed that for a long time, because
Thank you.
I think that's great. There's Danny was asking if you knew Dr. Hugh Berryman from Tennessee. I think he's got some connections with the Body Farm.
Lily, my wife has worked there a few times, and I'm betting she knows Hugh. She's probably downstairs right now going, "Yes, I know Hugh." Oh yeah, there we are. We were fortunate enough to have both walked together for our PhDs. So had to put that picture on.
Yeah, and I'm
I'm
sure
a
that you
lucky
both
dude.
are. You are lucky, and you get reminded of that every month when you're paying your school loan. I have no doubt.
That's true. That's true.
So this guide, you guys put together this field guide. Not only do you do that, but you do something else that I think is really incredible. And you guys offer training to people that, for instance, it's through the Bone and Stone Anthro-Sciences. And
that's
basically,
our logo right there.
That's your logo. You can go to their website. They have that. If you're law enforcement, and there's a lot of law enforcement that actually tunes in here from throughout the country, you can go to that website right there, boneandstoneanthrosciences.com, and they actually have classes. They've got at least 2 that are set up. And one of the things that I had asked Sam before we went on here, I said, are these classes just exclusive to that of anthropologist and law enforcement? And you said no. I mean, if somebody is interested in joining you guys, tell us a little bit about what some of this training might consist of.
Well, and one thing to keep in mind with these, allowing people to come in is dependent on what the class is and who the class is sponsored by. Often we have a police agency or sheriff's department who is putting on the class, or might be a Marine or Army company, somebody who is putting it on. So in that case, probably wouldn't allow someone else. But if that weren't an issue, yes, I mean, we wouldn't turn them down unless there was a situation like that.
Sure.
And what is taught is anything from identifying different, basically human, non-human is one thing. And so we have an assortment. I am always giving my wife a bad time because, we'll be driving along and I've hunted for decades. I don't do it so much anymore, but she loves to find, sorry, Lily, she's downstairs, I'm sure listening, but she probably don't know me, but she'll find a roadkill deer or something and wait for it to, have its skin and everything disappear, and then collect its bones. And those bones from them, as well as different sources, animal-wise, we use to compare with human bones. And we were gifted an assemblage of human skeletal remains from a very well-known forensic anthropologist. That's where some of the pictures came from in the book. We sometimes have them depending on the requests at the classes, and sometimes it's just plastic. And so we'll compare human with non-human. Some bones are interestingly similar. Long bones, for instance, of deer are pretty similar to some of our long bones. So being able to recognize what is human is probably the best way to go, as opposed to what is animal, because once you know the human bones, you know that they aren't if the animal in most cases. And then when you come up and you find something that, who knows, send a picture to someone like us, Lily especially, my wife especially. She gets bone pictures all the time, and she'll be able to, in most cases, tell human, non-human. But if you do that, remember to always put a scale in there or something, a dollar bill, something, so
Yeah.
we know what the size is.
Yeah.
And then also we'll have excavation classes. We'll have classes for how to map a location using a baseline or an azimuth board, which are two things that you'd learn about in a class that it allows you to have direction, a compass direction, and distance. So all based on a north arrow, magnetic north. So
And
those
it's
types of things are.
it's tedious. It's not. They're not in any hurry. Okay, they're not going to just. They're just
Right.
not going to just
Yep.
scoop that bone out. They're going to very painstakingly do it to where nothing gets damaged. More photographs with scales. Got to have a scale or
Yep.
some reference point, because that's one thing. They're like, hey, you got to have a picture. Throw something in that so I can see what I can, understand what I'm looking at here. And and they're no different than the anthropologist we have here in Tulsa, Angela Berg. I'll give her a shout. She's got a room that's just stacked with bones from all different kinds of animals and stuff like that. And Danny and I, and actually there's another guy in here from Triad Forensics, and they're out of he's out of Thornton, Colorado, which is just outside of Denver. And all three of us went through the thing in New York City. And when we did that, one of the neatest things that we did is a day that we had with the forensic anthropologists, who literally sat us at different stations, and we had to go through and dig through a pile of bones and say, nope, this is going to be an animal, this is going to be a person. And we're certainly we're not an expert, but it was still a fun exercise to kind of get us to have a little bit more of an appreciation, honestly, of what you guys do.
Excellent.
And your knowledge. Yeah, for sure. So that's one. Are the classes any different, or are you guys like burying pigs and studying those? And
we sure have
cows and exhuming, or like I don't know if you can do that with a buffalo. There's probably state laws that says heck no. But
yeah, we've actually we haven't done that. We've done it with pigs before. Mostly now what we do is with plastic skeletons, because the process is the same. Although you don't get the adipocere or the any of the soft tissues or the smell or anything, the process is the same in how you excavate. So that's the main thing we're getting at, is how to replicate.
You will be proud of me, because myself and my former colleague, Detective Ronnie Leatherman, who actually was my co-host on here back in the day, we were sitting through a clandestine grave class, and he goes, man, this is really cool. And I was like, yeah, this is really cool. And he goes, I wonder how we could do something like this. And I'm like, I'm thinking my wheels are turning. Where can we get a body? We need to get a body. How can we get a body? And then I came to reality. It's like, there's no way in the world Tulsa is going to let us go. Where are we going to find a body? Number one, we can't do that. But you're right. The closest thing to a human being is a pig.
Right.
And so we had the city of Tulsa. We had to go around, and we researched this stuff, and then we put together a proposal, and we went around and we actually got funds to purchase a pig from the Oklahoma State University swine department. They were going to euthanize it anyway. And then we brought it out. We'd already dug the hole. We went 2 feet deep, because that's usually what people do. They're lazy. They usually dig shallow graves. That's where that term comes from. And basically, we invited other people, like other crime scene people, to come out and help us. And then we had our crime scene, or we had the range people shoot this pig after it was already euthanized. It was already dead. So we don't need anybody to freak out about that. But it was after they were dead. So we had them shoot it up with various things in the hole, out of the hole. We clothed it, and then we watched it. We covered it up, and then we studied it. We had a trail cam, and we studied this thing for about a year, and we were being, really scientific with it, our results and so forth. And it was nasty when we exhumed it. I'll tell you what, I ruined a pair of boots over it. And I mean, it was not pleasant, but we did that, and we didn't really know what we were doing, but it was still a neat experiment to kind of have an understanding. To tell you the truth, it helped us when we found a person later on that was actually in a shallow grave, to look what to look for. Like, for instance, the certain types of flies. There's species of flies
Yep.
that are kind of like death flies, and little bugs and beetles that are specific to that of death. And so it was a
Yes.
really neat experiment, and I'm glad we did it. And
Yeah,
I'd
and
like to do it again.
that was Lily's basically her master's thesis was the taphonomy of 3 pigs that were left out in different conditions for a year, and studying anything from pupae casings to how the sun reacted to, or how the skin reacted to the sun exposure or not. So all of those things are super important. And yeah, it's the maggot situation. You can tell a lot by how they move and the density and all of this. So anything from taking temperature of maggot mass, and Lily wanted me to do that. It's like, yeah, no, I'm good. I'm okay
Yeah.
with that. I'll come out here and build fences and stuff like that for this. And
Yeah.
but
I'm
some
not
of it
in,
I didn't participate.
I'm not into the maggots either, but I have seen where they can take maggots and they can put them in a blender and then do some toxicology on it
Right.
and
Yep.
learn what if the person may have died of a drug overdose or something like that, kind of a deal.
Exactly. Yes.
Fascinating stuff.
And it's one thing. Another crazy thing that I never thought of was the maggots all leave at once. They leave a big, like you'll go out there one day and they're feeding, and then the next one they're ready to leave. Thousands of them leave and create a pathway across the grass. I mean, there are some very bizarre things that yeah. But those are all telling, and they're all part of the data.
Anything else that you want to leave us and embark upon us in reference to your that I don't want to miss anything? That this is your opportunity to. Man, I appreciate it. I really do. I think what you're doing that's really kind of cool is the fact that you and Lily, also known as Teresa, you guys are both. You guys are doing something to try to educate others, and that's I've always seen that with anthropologists or archaeologists, where you guys get excited by teaching others your discipline. And I've never found one yet that wasn't personable and excited about teaching others what the heck they're talking about, And so I think that says a lot about your profession, and I think that's really neat.
Thank you, Jason. I greatly appreciate having this ability to talk to people and tell them what we do and I don't really, I mean, gosh, I hate to leave everyone with a maggot visual, but I guess it's what we do. So,
well, throw up that book, Amanda, and we'll leave that with a visual. That book,
okay.
Human Skeletal Remains. I'm telling you, that's one of those cool books that you should, if you're really serious about this industry, and then, what else is neat is that if you're sitting at home and you're like, man, I don't know what to do with my life, or I'm too old, or I just always wanted to get involved in something like, with the world of forensics or involved in this industry. Hey, you never know. I mean, this might be that road for you. I mean, Dr. Clyde Snow, who's a huge name in this industry, in your industry, who's deceased now, but he didn't even start this until he was like 50, I think, if I'm not mistaken. He was an old guy. Am I right on that?
I started my first class at university when I was, gosh, what was I? Around 50. So, yeah, you can do it.
Yeah, you can definitely do this, and it's something that is really fast, and you can do with it what you want. I mean, you can go into the direction that you want. If you wanted to be in more of the chief medical examiner office world, you certainly could go there. Believe me, I'm sure they're looking for people all the time. That's just an example of one of the brochures. That's a training that you guys are doing in September. That's awesome. That's going to be, well, they're hosting it in Colorado.
Right.
Doug Young, you need to look at that, buddy, with Triad Forensics, who's in the house, one of our old classmates, and he probably will. He'll probably be interested. Where in Colorado is that, by the way?
Gosh, Aurora, I believe.
Oh, perfect. Doug, it's right down the street, buddy.
Aurora Police Department. Yep.
It's right. It's next door to you. You're in Thornton Police Department. Thornton's right. It touches Aurora, buddy. So I'd be surprised if he's not at that. So anyway, like I said, I'll tell you what. Thank you all for being here. Jill, Lisa, Karen, Iris, Jurgen from Germany. There was somebody from the UK in the house tonight. Hello, Jill. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, everybody. Yes,
I'm excited to have thrilled that you were on. There was one question that I want to ask you though before we leave. Sure. That it was kind of an interesting one, and it was Tyler Burns. He's from Fort Wayne, Indiana, another friend of the show, and he was asking us something along the lines of it had to do with Mount Everest and thawing out a body. All right, so the question was like thawing out a body that was found in Mount Everest, say from the 50s, and how could you preserve the integrity of the body? And he's wanting to know, hope that makes sense of what he's asking. But I mean, what do you do with a body that's like from up there from the 50s? And hypothetically, because you're not, that would be neat to take a body from up there, bringing it to your lab, of course. And then what do you do next? I mean, what do you do with that to just kind of make sure
with a frozen body, the cryogenic end of things, that's very specialized. And I know that you need to have it in a climate controlled environment to where it would not be defrosted too quickly. And to be honest, I am not an expert at that type of recovery, but I know there are people who are, and you just want to take into account all of the factors. And one of the main ones is that it's frozen. And if flesh decomposes differently if it's been frozen, because in the freezing process, ice is crystallized, right? You recognize that that's what it's like when it's frozen. It's crystals, or frozen hard would be, a solid piece of ice. However, it is crystalline in form. What that crystal does on a cellular level is it breaks down each cell. So the decomposition rate is, once it happens real fast. So you'd want to establish what the remains were and are in a frozen state, and gradually you'd want an expert doing that.
All right. Good answer. And there's so much to know. And golly, Doctor, you're an impressive guy. I'm honored to know you. I'm honored to have you in my stable of experts that are my friends.
Thank you, Jason.
That if I ever had a question, I could reach out to you or your wife. And absolutely. I know that if you didn't know the answer, you would definitely point me in the right direction. And ladies and gentlemen, if you're in law enforcement, or if you're one of those people that wants to that is in this kind of industry somewhat, maybe a medical examiner's office, etc., or you work for crime scene, etc., this might be the type of training that you can get in on. I know that their seats are limited to they can't have 100. It's like basically more of an intimate setting where you might have 25, 26 people. Correct. And that's so they can give you more individualized training, I'm sure. And so and check out, consider their book. Feel free to shoot them if you have a question that deals with bones or that kind of stuff, then I'm sure that they would be willing to do their best to try to answer it. And absolutely. Until I don't click the red box yet. We're going to wait until I want to talk to you after this. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I can't thank you enough. I say it every episode. This show is not a show without you. And this is what makes it fun for me. This is my healthy hobby. And this is something that every week I learn. That's what I enjoy. I mean, I've got a stable of all-stars that are sitting back there that I can go to if I had that question. Whether I'm in this industry or not in the future, it doesn't really matter. I'm fascinated with this kind of stuff, and I think that's what's neat about all of this. And I think we learned about a lot of great stuff. And he just scratched the surface. My gosh, we could have talked about all Yellowstone for the next 16 weeks. That's a whole class in and of itself. So ladies and gentlemen, please subscribe. I appreciate it. And it basically just alerts you to when I'm going to do new episodes. I want to thank everybody. thank you for being here. From Ann,
Thank you,
Karen.
everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much. Thank you from not only him, but from Lily, his wife.
Absolutely.
That she had a blast on here too. I know she did, because she kept
Yep,
messaging
for
me
sure.
about it, and she was
And we
having a
both
fun
thank
time.
you, Jason, very much for getting
you.
us involved in this podcast. We greatly appreciate
Perfect.
being able to say what we do and help people if we
right.
can.
Well, tomorrow I got to get off of here, because tomorrow I'm going to be in Big Sky Country, Montana, and that's my stressful point, is making sure I have everything I need, making sure I've got all the thumb drives, etc. So I need to get after it. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll catch you. We'll see if we do an episode. If we're going to do an episode next week, I'll make sure that I put it up, and we'll see what I do. I do have somebody that's going to come on and talk about drones at the ME's office, and this guy is a pioneer in that industry, and he's going to come on, and I just don't know. We may do something next week. I don't know. But until then, take us out, Amanda.